Okay, good. And also, if I may ask that you send it to Aaron as usual.
Definitely.
Okay. Aaron was so busy this last week, he didn't have a chance to post last week's. And he asked me, well, should I go ahead? I said, yes, go ahead, because every week there's so much news, and every meeting covers something different. So might as well. So we'll have two YouTubes posted pretty much together. You know, I really do have to say that we're very blessed that until now we have not had war. And I know eventually there has to be a war. The U.S. aircraft carrier Roosevelt is now within range of Iran, approaching the Persian Gulf. And I get all these YouTubes and all these messages, and all together you get kind of a picture. And the picture I got was that the U.S. military, and including the U.S. government, Biden and Blinken, understand that a war between Iran and Israel is inevitable, and the internal intelligence information that the U.S. is getting is that the Iranians are full steam ahead for a war with Israel. And so Israel is staying put. Israel is, you know, not, as far as I know, Israel is not going ahead with any military action against Iran or Lebanon. So it's very nerve-wracking that we do not get a resolution to the problem. The resolution to the problem is terminating Hezbollah in Lebanon and terminating the government in Iran so that the people of Iran can finally have democracy. So it's going to be interesting to see the legacy of the Democrat government by November 6th, you know, by the elections. So meanwhile, we have our electricity. Meanwhile, we have our internet. We're able to lead pretty much normal lives. And so we are here. I don't know. Did I tell you last week about what happened with the book that it seems like I'm going to be translating from the good old days 55 years ago? It seems anyway. So I have to tell you. I have to tell you a little story, but it's going to be interesting. You know, I'm working on 2 books, or I should be working on 2 books, and because of the war, everything gets stymied. Anyway, so a log jam has just been busted up. I get a call from someone who it seemed the way he talked, it seemed like he was a Shabak, you know, security services interrogator. And they started asking me questions about my activities 55 years ago on college campus here in Israel. And I was kind of surprised, you know, because they were very penetrating questions. And on the one hand, I didn't know if I should answer or not, but I said, you know what, go ahead and answer. You know, how long more do I have to live? I might as well, you know, answer. And all my buddies from college days, he was mentioning them and asking what I knew about them and what was their participation. And we had a call like for about an hour. And I said, well, I said to Rachel, visit me when I'm in jail, because I belong to a group of revolutionaries. And this was right after the 6-Day War. So I made Aliyah in summer '68. So this is 1 year after the 6-Day War. And I got off the plane, went to the student dorms in Jerusalem, and I heard music from across the courtyard. And it was the kind of songs that I was used to from my youth movement days. And so I was in uniform. I got off the plane. I didn't even take a shower. I went straight to the party. And I started singing with them. They saw me in uniform. And in those days, people still wore the uniform sometimes. And 2 guys came over to me and said to me, "You're Beitar?" I said, "Yes." Beitar is like a very fascist type Boy Scout movement. In America, people don't know these things because in America, you have Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, you know, big deal. But in Israel, we used to have every political party had a youth movement, and every youth movement had a uniform. And by the way, when I got off the plane at Ben Gurion Airport in August 1968, the immigration officer looked at me and looked at my uniform. He says, "You are a marked man," because I was at the right wing. Because Israel is a socialist-controlled government. And anyway, so I went up to the dorms, went to the party, and they said, "You're Beitar?" I said, "Yes, I'm Beitar." I said, "Do you want to go with us to Hebron? We're taking an Arab bus." In those days, people would take Arab buses. So we went with an Arab bus to Hebron, and we linked up with the Rabbi Levinger settlement group in Hebron, and then I was sent to another area, Beit Jala, which is now Gilo in Jerusalem, and I was doing guard duty up there, and all the adventurous things that Zionist kids like to do, and getting arrested all the time. We went up to Sebastia, we went to other places, and the army was immediately pulling us down. We're setting up tents and setting up settlements. This was what was known as the partisan settlement group. And I can never forget the next day after our activities, where people were telling us Moshe Dayan was banging on the table with his fist and furious with this settlement group of right-wing Jewish kids. We were the first to be making trouble for the government of the Labor Party. And there's a lot more I could tell you. I don't want to waste your time in the Zoom. But anyway, so this guy, Elchanan Shiloh, calls me, interrogating me for like an hour. And it brought back memories from 55, 54, 53 years ago. And a week ago, I get a telephone call from one of the group, good friends of ours, and he raises mangoes. He has mango trees in the Jordan River Valley. And he said, "Listen, we need your help, Avi." I said, "What's the problem?" He said, "Well, we have been working on printing Elchanan Shiloh's book." I said, "I didn't know Elchanan Shiloh was writing a book. He was just interrogating me." So it turns out that the Bar Ilan University has adopted the book, but they don't have money. So all the members of the group are chipping in. They said, "Avi, can you chip in?" I said, "Yes." So I called Aaron. "Aaron, can you chip in?" "Yes." This is a history book of the first settlers after the 6-Day War. And I mean, we took it for granted that we were going to go get arrested, do all kinds of troubles, but we knew this was the beginning of Jews moving to live in Judea and Samaria and Gaza. And today there are over 500,000 Israelis living in Judea and Samaria, including me and my 2 sons and their families. So I called Elchanan Shiloh. I said to him, "Tell me, what's going on? What's the problem with the book?" He says, "We need 9,000 shekels. 9,000 shekels is like $2,500. I said, "Well, my son and I can give you some. Maybe we can give you the whole amount, but this is stupid," I said to him. "You are writing such an important book on the history of Israel after the 6-Day War, which was the beginning of the settlement movement today. And don't you have people who support this?" He said, "Well, we Israelis, blah, 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 blah." I said to him, "Wait, I want to ask you a question. Is the book coming out in English?" He said, "Well, we don't have anyone to translate the book into English." So I said to him, "I'll translate the book into English." I was senior editor and translator in the Prime Minister's office in 1989, 1990. Anyway, so we're going to be meeting Thursday night, and we're going to review. He said, "I'm so happy you're volunteering to translate the book." But I said to him, "Listen, if I translate the book in English, we're going to sell thousands of copies of the book to the Christians in America. A lot of Christian people in America or Messianic, they want to know how this whole settlement issue started. And I was part of it. Rachel, I had just met her, and she was working the television in Jerusalem. And every time there was some trouble, we were cooking up trouble for the Israeli government, the TV was there because Rachel told them Avi is going to get arrested. So everybody came, and all the TV. So, and I have clips of movie film, and I have it even in my computer now. We posted it. So anyway, so why am I telling you all this? Because of this crazy war, I was hamstrung. I was stymied from finishing the fourth issue of my the second issue of my fourth book about the Bible block. And I said, this is crazy. I'm paralyzed by the enemy, Satan, that I can't work on the book. So now I'm full steam ahead to complete the book on Israel's Bible block, the updated issue. Then immediately get into translating the settler book into English, and hopefully having it printed in the States privately so that nobody can confiscate the book and take away our rights. And then work on the third book that I have to do, which is about Turkey and Armageddon, which I told you already about. So it's a very unusual feeling at age 75 that I felt like, I was a shmate. In Yiddish, shmate is just a rag. I was so wiped out all the time by this war going on, and unable to work and unable to do it. I'm too old for carrying a gun and fighting. But now I became happy again because I have 3 books to print in English, take them to America, and get them distributed, because there are many, I believe, thousands of American Christians and Messianics who will be interested in this book about the settlements. And I'm now getting close to someone, I don't know if you know him, Obadiah Yerushalmi, Obadiah Abrahami, and he believes that we're going to get millions of immigrants who are directly from the 10 tribes. Now, I don't know who's 10 tribes, but there are a lot of people who say to me, we know that we're from the 10 tribes. And frankly, we need 10, 20, 30 million immigrants, which of course Jews don't have. We have only about 7, 8 million. We're going to need all these new settlers after these wars are over to resettle Jews and Christians in Lebanon, resettle Jews and Christians in Syria. There are many Christians, they don't have to come Jewish. I know some of the rabbis will be furious with me, but the question I always ask the rabbis, is the Messiah going to appear or reappear on the Mount of Olives only for the Jews? By the Jewish definition, if he's only for the Jews, he's not the Messiah, because the Messiah is coming for all of humanity. So if there are Christians or Messianics or 10 tribe people that want to come back to Israel, we will find areas like Lebanon, like Damascus, like, areas that are not necessarily Israel, which are the turf of the rabbis. And the Jews will live with Christians in those areas too, but it'll be like how shall I call it, a commonwealth. So we will have from the Nile to the Euphrates. I believe it will be from the Nile to the Euphrates, because the Egyptians are preparing for war against Israel. So we didn't talk about Turkey really a lot. We didn't talk about Egypt a lot. We just talk about Gaza and Lebanon and Iran. But the picture is much bigger, and we must have Christian immigration to Israel. And this has to be planned. First, it has to be recognized. It has to be discussed. And so I'm hoping that, my whole life now is going into all these different purposes. And I'm very excited that God is allowing me to do these things. I want to see again Lebanon becoming a Christian country, and bring Lebanese Christians back. A lot of Lebanese Christians fled because nobody could stop Hezbollah. And we're going to stop Hezbollah. And you all probably remember that Lebanon was once the Switzerland of the Middle East. It was a paradise. So I think there'll be a lot of Christians who will want to come here, live in Lebanon, and we will make sure to it that terrorism will never raise its ugly head again in Lebanon, and of course in Israel. So, I'm talking about thinking about the future, and not just saying, well, kick the can down the road. No, I'm not a person who kicks the can down the road. So it's good that you guys understand that term, because in Israel, nobody ever heard of kick the can down the road. The Israeli government is always kicking the can down the road. So anyway, so that's kind of a personal item, which I felt I needed to share with you. And I'm very excited. I feel like I still have something to live for, other than
It
just
is very exciting. It is. You're moving on to the next phase, the
Yes.
next 70 years.
Yeah.
Ah,
But I still want to come to Long Island to eat Chinese pizza. Or go to Great Neck to eat Chinese food at Chosin. So anyway,
That's all wonderful to hear, Avi.
yes. How are you, Donna?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Very well.
How's Pastor Debbie?
Oh, she's coming along. Yeah.
Were you guys affected by the flooding?
No, we did get a lot of rain, but we were okay, and none of our congregants were affected by it, really. So that's a good thing.
It was
By the
the
way-
North Shore. The North Shore got it bad.
North Shore.
Yeah.
Hear about Great Neck? Was Great Neck okay?
Most of the towns that I saw listed were more east of
Out on the island. Because it's flatter.
It was more
Yeah.
like well, some of the areas were Middle Island, Huntington, as Pastor Sue said, north.
That's a little further out. Tell me, Donna, when are you guys leaving the church building?
We have a closing date of February 1st, so 2025, of course. So we're packing up now. We're going through everything and, starting to see what we want to throw away, what we want to store.
I have 2 or 3 boxes in that little storage room when you go down the stairs.
Yeah.
It's really kind of junk, but I want it so I can throw it out myself. Check whatever's inside that may be of importance. There is a plastic container with LP records from 50, 60 years ago, which are beautiful music records. If somebody wants those records, they can take them. But there's one box there with paperwork, and probably that can be thrown away too. But I'm just saying, if it's not an imposition, if the things can be held, I can sit down. One day I have to come back to the States.
Yeah.
I'll come back to you guys and I'll show you what I have and probably give it away. But it's better than just throwing it out.
No, of course, if you prefer to look through it, we'll just hold it. But I'm glad you told me. And once we go, we haven't hit that area yet. Once we go through, I'll make sure that it gets put aside.
Right. Do you still have meetings at the church?
Yes, we're still meeting on Sundays and Wednesdays, though sometimes we do that by Zoom. We're still having.
We're gonna do our big Sukkot there also with them.
Right. I was just gonna say we're still doing special meetings. Well,
Sukkot, okay.
Sukkot, and I also have a women's meeting there. We're using it down to the last drop, right, Donna?
Yep.
I hope maybe I'll be in time to give at least one more chat to the group.
Well, the group is not disbanding, just the building.
Right.
Yeah, we're relocating. We're downsizing and going to a smaller building. It's just gotten too expensive for such a small group, for us to. We hung in there for quite a while, but finally.
It's a wonderful facility.
It is, and it served us well for all the years we've been there, but it's time for a change. And
yes. Amen.
Yeah, it's a new chapter.
Well, anyway, give my love to Pastor Debbie.
I will, and I always, as always, I give our love to you from the people and from Pastor Deb.
Rachel also sends her love, and she's downstairs with her granddaughter, so I can't get her to come up. She's a very private woman. I'm the show up. So anyway, okay. Before I continue speaking, are there any pressing questions people might have?
Just a comment, as I've been watching the news, and I'm watching more because of the upcoming elections. Maybe I'm naive, but I've been shocked at how most of the, the news networks are making Israel look so aggressive. They make Israel look like the aggressors,
Right.
in all of this. It's very upsetting to me.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I have to tell you, Israel was attacked many times by the Egyptians, and three times we took Sinai and Gaza, and each time the United States made us give it back. I don't know if I spoke about this in the past Zooms, but the Egyptian military has taken a number of steps which have us all very concerned here in Israel, that Egypt is preparing for war with Israel. They have dug many tunnels under the Suez Canal so that Egyptian tanks and heavy trucks can go under the canal and be on the border with Israel in just 3 hours. And we're asking the Egyptians, why are you making all these preparations for war against us? And no, this is against ISIS. When they had problems with ISIS in the north of Sinai, Israel helped to bombard them and to strengthen the Egyptian government. We did the Egyptians a great favor. But the point I have to emphasize is Egypt has no enemies. To the west, you have Libya, and Libya is in the throes of a civil war always. To the south of Libya, you have Chad, also not a threat to Egypt. To the south, you have Sudan, and they're actually kind of close to the Egyptians. I heard this in the news today. I completely freaked out. The Egyptians have spent, and they don't have the money. They've spent over $150 billion, most of it to buy American weaponries, aircraft, tanks, and others. And Egypt has no enemies, and yet the people in Egypt are starving. Why are the Egyptians investing so much into war-making capabilities? It's only to attack Israel. And in the middle of Sinai today, we know that the Egyptians are digging in, and they're putting in missile launching sites in the middle of Sinai. In other words, their missiles can hit Israel in a few minutes. We have discovered, until now, we have discovered 50 tunnels from Gaza across the Philadelphia Road into Egypt. So the Egyptians were not behaving in a friendly manner to Israel. All these weapons that Gaza used against Israel on October the 7th came from Egypt. So it's not only did the Egyptians turn a blind eye, the Egyptians were financing and helping the Gaza terrorists to kill Israelis. So the American media may say that Israel is to blame, but this is a long-term strategy of Egypt to prepare for another war with Israel. Hence, Avi Lipkin says there should be no surprise if we take Sinai a fourth time. From the Nile to the Euphrates, we don't want to take Sinai. We want to be left alone. But if Allah, the devil of Islam, wants to kill all the Jews on the face of the earth and the Christians, so that's why they're arming so much to attack Israel. So we're going to be watching Egypt like a hawk. And if the American media attacks Israel for being intransigent, with the neighbors we have to be intransigent to defend ourselves.
Right.
Either we're stupid and then we're dead. So we're not stupid and we don't want to be dead. So we have to insist on total control of the Philadelphia Road. And this is the border between Gaza and Egypt. So the Israeli government is there. The Israeli military is there. We were in Lebanon 4 times because we were attacked 4 times. And now, if we go in again, people say, oh, Israel's intransigent, because we cannot leave the south of Lebanon until we've totally destroyed Hezbollah. And you have to remember, I don't know if you know this or not, but there are these tunnels in South Lebanon, which are built for Mack trucks, big trucks. And these are missile launchers trucks. And when they get the orders, they can pull up, they have a gate, they open the gate, and they fire their missiles, and they close the gate and go back in. And they have these tremendous missiles. So who built the tunnels? Germany, because the Germans were brought in to build sewers. And so they asked for the biggest sewers that could be built. And the sewers are so big, the trucks can traverse them. And who built the tunnels? The North Koreans. So the North Koreans and the Germans have been working with Hezbollah for decades already to build these tunnels. So the war, it's also one of the reasons why Israel is not so excited to go to war with Hezbollah. Also, the kind of war with Lebanon is very dangerous because you have very deep ravines with mountains on both sides. And when the tanks go through, they're sitting ducks. And we already had experiences with them in past wars. So the war with Hezbollah is not an easy thing if we decide to go into it. And the missiles they have will kill thousands, if not tens of thousands of Israeli citizens in Tel Aviv and other areas. So at this stage, it's a mixed blessing. On the one hand, we're afraid of American intervention, but on the other hand, having 4 or perhaps 5 aircraft carrier groups in the Mediterranean and to the south and to the west of just off the coast of Iran, we know that Iran is preparing inevitably an attack on Israel. The American military knows about it, and the American military have said to Israel, if you keep cool, we will defend you. In other words, the American government is saying to Israel, don't attack Hezbollah, don't attack Lebanon. Let them make the mistake. And I don't know if it's right or if it's not right, but we have no choice because if we've got 4 or 5 aircraft carrier groups off the coast of Israel, we have to be cool. If you remember, I think does anyone remember that my story about the pastor was a submariner?
No.
Anyone who was listening who knows, say yes. Otherwise, I have to tell you the story.
I don't remember.
Susan? So,
That's
do you want
the
me
one-
to tell you again? I'll tell you again.
Submarine. Yeah, you told it last week again. I think.
So anyway, so
That's
I'm in touch. I'm in touch with the pastor who was a submariner on that submarine, and he said to me, "I wish I could be." The U.S. sent a nuclear submarine with 154 Tomahawk missiles, and so he said, "I wish I could be on that submarine now to make sure they don't attack Israel," because the commander of the Navy asked him, would he be willing to launch a nuclear strike at Tel Aviv if Tel Aviv went against American decision making? So, I'm not a spy, but I travel around the country and people come up to me freely and give me information. So all of these things are known. Anyway, so that's Lebanon and Syria and what do you call it? Iran. I think if they try to attack Israel, they really lost it because what Iran wants is industrial peace and quiet so they can continue making atom bombs. I think the American military has come to the understanding. Now, the Democrat Party is something else. They don't want to hear about anything. So we're very concerned about the Democrat Party. Actually, I personally am happy that Kamala Harris is the nominee because I don't think there is any nominee less dangerous to Trump than Kamala Harris. So I think the term, I was afraid to say it to my sister when I wished her happy birthday on Sunday, but there's a term in American slang, dingbat. So I called Kamala Harris. I'm going to, before the elections on November 6th, I'm going to send an email to my sister, please don't vote for the dingbat. So we'll have to see.
It's appropriate.
Yeah. I keep
Really,
remembering. I keep remembering Archie Bunker calling his wife a dingbat.
Yes.
So that's with Iran. Did I mention, I think I mentioned it on my Thursday Zoom, something interesting. Now this is going way off into another direction. You know, there is a country in Africa called Ethiopia, and we have a lot of Ethiopians, I think 150,000 have come to live in Israel, and they are wonderful people. And the Ethiopian boys and girls quickly become officers in the Israeli army. A lot of them go into high tech. We're very proud of our Ethiopians. And also they put to a lie stupid people and evil people who say that Israel is an apartheid country. We're not at all. The people who are apartheid are the Arabs, because if you are a Jew, if you're an Israeli, you cannot go into the Arab section. They'll kill you. That's apartheid. Anyway, so Ethiopia is the biggest, most populated country in Africa, and they're landlocked. Ethiopia does not have an exit to the sea, doesn't have a seaport. And I think it's just to the north, there's a country called Somalia. But Somalia used to be divided into two. It used to be Somalia and Somaliland. Now, if you were a stamp collector like me, you know Somaliland was an Italian protectorate. The Somalis, but they have a different system than Somalia. But the country was united. And Somaliland is deciding to leave Somalia because the Ethiopians need access to a seaport, and it seems there's an agreement. One of the things that begs watching, as you know, the Egyptians built the Aswan Dam on the border with Sudan. But if you go further south, there's the Blue Nile, and the Blue Nile goes into Ethiopia, and the Ethiopians built a dam. So now the Egyptians are angry because they say that Ethiopia is blocking the water from going to Egypt. And so basically Ethiopia is preparing for war with Egypt, and Egypt is preparing for war with Ethiopia. Probably the troops will meet somewhere on the Sudanese territory, because that's the country that's blocking them from meeting. And so this is just something to pay attention to the future. That the Ethiopians, and by the way, Ethiopian government is allied with Israel. So you have to remember, you have to look at the overall picture. It's just, I find it very interesting. Another thing, did I talk last week about my dear friend in Bangladesh? I don't know if I did or not. I think I didn't. I have a friend in Bangladesh. His name is Rajiv Das. He's a Hindu and very pro-Israel. And he's married to a Christian woman. They have a few kids. And he has been writing to me over the years about Bangladeshi politics. And you think to yourself, who cares about Bangladeshi politics? I'm here to talk about Israel. So something very strange happened. Bangladesh, of course, is a Muslim country. It has a lot of Hindus and Buddhists and Christians. Very interesting country. And the government has been controlled for many years by a very popular lady prime minister, Hussein, I'm having a senior moment, Husseina, Sheikh Husseina, her name is. And Rajiv was writing to me that the US government is interested in an island in the Gulf of Bengal called St. Martin's Island. Now, I don't know if you ever heard of it. I never heard of it until last week. St. Martin's Island is very strategic. And it basically anyone who controls it has control of the whole of the Gulf of Bengal. But not only that, the Gulf of Bengal is very rich in oil. The oil has not been prospected yet. And the U.S. government, okay, are you listening? I wanted you, Susan, especially to pay attention. I know you're talking to Al, and Al is being very disruptive here. America wants the oil, and they want the strategic capability of the island. So the American government made a deal, and Rajiv was warning me for years about this. The Americans are not supporting the democratically elected government in Bangladesh. They're supporting the Taliban-type fanatic Muslims. And the decision was made. It's a very long story, but I don't want to bore you with all the details. I invited Rajiv, by the way, to be on the Zoom here, but maybe he's not available. The American government made a deal with the fanatic Taliban in Bangladesh to overthrow Sheikh Hussein. They orchestrated very violent demonstrations. And again, remember, Sheikh Hussein, her government is the popularly elected, the only democracy. I mean, they're like India. They're a democracy. Massive riots exploded, violent riots, killing Hindus, killing Christians, killing Buddhists. And Sheikh Hussein fled to India. And she's a Muslim. She's a Muslim leader, but she's moderate. And I'm praying for Rajiv that he should not have a problem to get out of Bangladesh before they kill him and his family. So the fanatic Taliban Muslims took over in Bangladesh. Instead of the United States propping up a democratic government, they supported the winning side, which was the Islamic terrorists. And then when the Americans said to the Taliban Muslims, okay, we want the island, St. Martin's Island, they told America basically, you know what, where to go. And so America, by its own efforts, has overthrown a democratically elected government and has brought in a Muslim totalitarian government. Another thing was that the Chinese Navy has 4 destroyers there. So there is a tacit agreement between the U.S. and China. Is any of this in your news in America? These are
No.
terrible. These are terrible.
Under which administration did that begin to happen?
I mean, this has been going on for the last year or two.
Mm.
It's the Democratic administration. So you have here an unholy matrimony with the Chinese, an unholy matrimony with the Muslims. And again, you know me, I like to look at the overall picture of what's going on. And next door, you have a country called Burma or Myanmar, and it's controlled by a junta of generals, and the generals are all supported by communist China. So now the support of the Muslims in communist China goes over to Bangladesh. I can't believe how America is shooting itself in the foot, making stupid decisions. Now, why am I telling you all this? Because the American government has been working since October the 7th to overthrow Netanyahu. Now a news story came out all of a sudden. I don't know where my wife, how she found it, but there is now a story about someone who disappeared here in Israel. And he was protesting against the leftists. And he disappeared 7 years ago. And 7 years ago, the leftists were saying to him, stop talking about it because we are orchestrating a coup d'etat against Netanyahu. And they said to him, don't you know that we're preparing a civil war in Israel? The socialists are preparing a civil war in Israel. And America is supporting it. The globalists are supporting it. So all of a sudden, what do you know? God, after 17 years of Muslim preparations, they attack us on October the 7th. You know what? It was a blessing from God that Gaza attacked us on October the 7th, because all of a sudden we woke up. We were delirious. we were living under a delusion that life would continue. No, life cannot continue when you have a coup d'etat orchestrated by the United States and backed by globalists and backed by generals. Who knows who's paying them? So what happened in Bangladesh, a U.S. orchestrated coup d'etat against Sheikh Hussein. Now we have orchestrated, and you all remember, I've been talking about this now since October the 7th. So we're having a war here of the globalists against the nationalist Jews, or non-globalist people in Bangladesh, or see, Trump is not a globalist, so they hate him also. Anyway, I don't know what to tell you. I watch the news. I watch all kinds of things which you're not getting in your media. And I'm reporting to you because these things are horrible. And I don't know how Trump would respond to it, but I have a feeling a lot of this is going to become public. And the dingbat probably doesn't know, excuse the expression, her ass from her elbow. Forgive me for saying such bad words. But how can it be America, the greatest country on earth, has the stupidest people running for office? I don't understand it. And when you get someone like Trump, okay, he's a little rude. I've been all over the United States, and many of the Christians said, oh, we're not voting for Trump because he uses cuss words. But that's precisely what makes him popular among the vast majority of right-wing Americans and military people. 34 million Christians did not vote. If they had voted, President Trump would have been president. So, I don't know what to tell you. We are all very concerned about the results of the elections on November 7th in the United States. We're here in Israel. We are all very concerned. Many people here in Israel are saying that we have to attack Iran and Hezbollah now before Democrats, God forbid, have a victory. And, Blinken came here now this week because of the Democratic convention. Don't. This is the one word that President Biden knows what to say. Don't. So for the Democrats, it's who's going to win the elections. For us, is will Israel be destroyed?
Our news said that Bibi okayed the peace plan offered by the U.S., but Hamas, I think this happened like twice in a row, once yes, once no. Hamas turned it down again, or is that old news?
As far as I know, they turned it down again. You have to remember that the hostages, the kidnapped hostages, are the insurance of Sinwar. The moment he gives them up, he will be killed. So he doesn't want to give them up. We had some good news today. I don't know if you can call it good news, but Israeli troops in one of the tunnels found 6 bodies of Israelis who were killed. They were captured alive on October the 7th, and they were executed by Hezbollah, by Hamas. So the number of missing people now went from 115 to 109. And the Israeli military has other information about other hostages, which I'm hoping we will find and extricate.
Avi, this is Elizabeth. How are you?
Hey, Elizabeth, how is everything in Odessa?
Oh, it's rocking along for sure.
Good.
I wanted to make a comment. You were talking about the elections and how concerned we are about them and everything. And I think people need to know that people that are voting don't have, of course, their Americans or a citizenship to vote. And in Texas, it's 2.3 million that don't have any type of voter certification or citizenship certification to be able to vote. But they can vote. There's about because this was in an article for Act for America. I don't know if you know Brigitte Gabriel.
Sure. We
Yes,
haven't
and
met. We haven't met personally, but we know of each other. Yes.
oh, y'all need to meet for sure. But anyway, she has Act for America, and she put out an article on how we were not how vulnerable we are to the fraud that's going to go on. And there's only 2 states that have actually addressed the issue of not using. They're able to use student IDs to vote. And they've lied to the DMV in flashing a student ID so that way they can get at least an identification to vote. So they can waltz in and vote in our elections, along with 2.3 million that have no citizenship. So it's very concerning. And I think there's only 2 states that have addressed this where it's not going to be acceptable for a student ID or anything. But the rest of us, even in Texas, are not addressing that issue before the elections. And it is terrifying to think that these people that are not, they're foreigners, are coming in and taking over our election process and being allowed to.
Well, listen. I spend an inordinate amount of time in Texas, especially West Texas.
Yes.
I love you guys. Texas. Everybody who's not from Texas on this call should not be offended, but Texas is my favorite state, and I love Texas. I'm going to tell you a horrible joke, but from there I'll get into what I'm saying. There's a story about the airport in Odessa, Midland, and there are 3 guys there in the waiting room, waiting for their plane, and one is a Texas cowboy, with a belt and boots and a big Texas hat, and then there's one guy who's a Native American. And then there's a 3rd guy who's a Muslim. And they're just sitting there waiting. And the Native American looks out over the airfield and all this land. And he says, he's a Native American. He says, once we were many, now we are few. And the Muslim said, once we were few, now we are many. And the Texan, this is a joke, of course, lifts his 10-gallon hat over his eyes. And he said, that's because we haven't played cowboys and Muslims yet.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Well, the joke is a good joke, but unfortunately, money talks, and a lot of money, a lot of corruption in Texas has made Texas a very fertile area for illegal immigrants and migrants. And I think that one of the problems with Christians, and with Texans especially, Texans, Christians, very warm, loving, hospitable people. And it's not a question of Democrat, Republican. It's simply Texas is just a very hospitable place, even though the word is to the contrary. Texans are tough, and you got the Texas Rangers, and you have the Cowboys. And I don't mean Texas Rangers baseball players. I'm talking about you remember the movie from 60 years ago on TV, the Texas Rangers. I grew up with that. So the Texans are supposed to be very militant and very tough, but the corruption, the bribes are so great that Texas became a what do you call it, a recipient of illegal immigrants. I heard the same thing about Arizona, by the way. There are a lot of illegals in Arizona. California went that way a long time ago. And I told you, all of you, that I had lunch with a neo-Nazi. I didn't know he was a neo-Nazi, but he told me the first thing they're going to do is to kill the Jews, because the Jews are all communists. The Jews are all Bolshevik. And he said we went from, before George Floyd was killed, there were 3 million militia members. Now that's 30 million. And so, you've got 30 million Muslims, so at least 3 million are terrorists. You got 30 million militia people, that's 3 million are neo-Nazi. I'm just throwing numbers around. And I think the fuse is lit. I'm very concerned. I think the fuse is lit. And of course, Avi Lipkin, with his Judeo-Christian Bible Bloc Party here in Israel, is waiting to receive Jews and Christians who I believe will be moving to Israel. Because if America decides to self-destruct because of these immigrants tossing the elections off to the Democrats, there's going to be a lot of dissatisfaction in America. And the Jews will be blamed. Jews are always blamed. So I don't know. I listen to what you say. My heart is broken for America. My heart is broken for Texas. I am not sure the good guys will win, but I think something could happen that the good guys win in Texas. The good guys win in America. That's what I'm praying for. Good point, Elizabeth. I always appreciate your comments.
Oh, well, thank you. I just found that on the internet the other day, and it was just shocking. And you're to call your representatives and ask them what are they doing to tighten up this system where you can minimize at least some of the fraud that's going on. And this is one of the ways. And I think there was only 2 states, with Ohio being one of them. And I can't remember who the other state was, but there's only 2, which leaves 48 states with unsecured ballot or access to voting. And they're not paying attention to this. So it's important for people to call or even look this up. It was on August the 13th. And I gave it to my Bible study group and told people, you really need to call our governor and everyone to do something about it. I don't think it's too late, but it's better late than never to have at least approached it and addressed some of it. Because it is terrifying to think that all these things can be stolen again. And we're left with Kamala and that mess and her vice president that she's picked. I mean, it's a communist society. It's going to be awful. And people are not educated well enough to even know what communism is. Of course, I came from it because of my dad being Cuban. And we know about all of this and what it does to destroy your country. And people aren't paying attention. Oh, it's not going to happen, or I don't like the way Trump talks, or, and the issue is, then you like what the other side is saying in the abortion. I don't know if you heard this or not. They have vans or trucks driving around the DNC that are performing abortions and vasectomies on the streets, outside the DNC. I don't know if you heard that. It was on the news last night. And it's just been horrifying. Yeah, it's been horrifying to think that we have people running that promote nothing but death.
And Christians are confused who to vote for.
Yeah, how can you be confused?
I mean, judgment, we're at the door. If just even the thought that a Christian would be confused, I don't think it even matters what they do anymore. The thought of confusion, God is watching. God is watching. This is his church, and they're confused. Somebody who curses or is nasty, or somebody who's killing babies on the sidewalk. I mean, the confusion. I have an eyewitness on Long Island who has been taking, girls who are not citizens, maybe with a green card, some with not. When they go to the doctor because they're on Medicaid, the doctor, the hospital pushes them to register them to vote. They're not citizens. And this is at hospitals on Long Island. And they're being requested, even coerced a little, to register them to vote.
Wow.
Yep.
If I may say something, I'm changing the subject a little, but I think it has a lot to do. I received a number of emails the last 2 days that the Black community in America is very angry with the Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
Because the DNC is so crazy that they're attacking the Black people. and many black people have decided to stop supporting the Democrats.
Yes.
And I had heard a long time that many black people are saying, hey, these Democrats haven't done anything for us. And I'll say something else also. Again, I'm not trying to be judgmental, but do the Jews in America support abortion? The answer is yes. Because the Jews who are liberal, it used to be 70-30, and then it became 60-40. Now many Jews are going to vote for Trump, but the point is that Black Lives Matter. One of the reasons they hate the Jews so much is because who gets aborted? Black children, black fetuses get aborted.
Exactly.
Who's to blame for abortion killing black babies? The Jews. Therefore, we have to kill the Jews. And Black Lives Matter is backed by Islamic Jihad. So they become eventually the useful idiots of the Islamic terrorists. So I think we're seeing a pushback by black people in America who are coming to the understanding that they really should not vote for the Democrats. And a lot of people are going over to Trump. Another thing also, because my family, believe it or not, is Hispanic. And I meet a lot of these Venezuelans, people from South America, Central America, and in the hotels that I go to, and Spanish is my mother tongue, so I talk to these people in Spanish. They're Christian, and they don't like the Democrats, even though I don't know how they came in illegally or not illegally. I think there is a growing resentment by Hispanic people in America against the Democrats also, because the Democrats are treating them like idiots. The Democrats look down on the blacks. They look down on the Hispanics. They look down on the Jews. So I would like to say, I don't want to say something, a statement, and then it turns out I was wrong. I pray to God that I'm right. But I think Trump is going to win because Trump, believe it or not, contrary to the Democrat propaganda, Trump loves everybody. He doesn't hate anybody. He's not even an enemy of China. He's not even an enemy of Putin. And he's a tough negotiator. But I don't think that we will see a war because of Trump. On the other hand, I think, okay, now this is completely flipped me out thing I'm going to say now. The regime in Iran has to be replaced. What better legacy would there be for the Democrats if a Democrat government under Biden or Kamala overthrew, or not Kamala, because she's not. I think Obama's going to kick out Kamala. They'll bring someone else, probably Whitmer. I think they're going to bring somebody like Whitmer to be the presidential candidate.
Brother.
I don't know. But what I'm saying is that if the Ayatollah regime is terminated in Iran and Iran gets some semblance of democracy and freedom, the Democrats will be able to say, hey, we did it. And it could be that the Israelis will be told don't by Biden, but secretly, yes, do it. This happens a lot in our history, Israel and the United States, that Israel ends up blowing up the nuclear facilities of Saddam Hussein. And in the end, Israel saved the United States and saved the world by destroying the nuclear facilities in Iraq and later in Deir ez-Zor in Syria. So if the Hezbollah can be thrown out of Lebanon, Lebanon can become the greatest Arab country in the Middle East as far as tourism, and it becomes another Switzerland again. You got to get rid of the terrorists. So think for a moment what would happen if these things happened under the presidency of President Biden or Vice President Kamala Harris. I'm just saying there's lots of flips and flops in international diplomacy and politics. We're just here in Israel. We're under the gun here. You guys are under the gun as far as your election. But it could be that the Democrat legacy, if Iran is overthrown and the people are liberated, and if the people of Lebanon are liberated, if Hezbollah is destroyed, it'll be good for Israel, and it'll be good for the world. I just don't know if the Democrats are bright enough to come up with a policy that would do that. But anyway, thank you, Elizabeth, for provoking the argument or the discussion. And any other questions?
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
I have a
Anytime.
question, Avi. Do
Well-
you have any thoughts or any news that we might not have heard on the rescue of the hostage bodies last night?
Well, the only thing I can tell you is that is what you already know, and that is that during the Israeli military operations in Gaza, there are those people who surrender. And we don't kill people who surrender. We only kill people who are shooting at us. So those people who have come out with their hands up or with a white flag, they get taken to security, they get interrogated, and there's a deal. I can't tell you the deal. I don't even know the deal, but I would imagine there's a deal. You tell us the information. We will get the people or the bodies out of there, and we will give you passports and help you to travel to any country in the world. Just, because Israel is not a country that likes to kill people. We want our people back. And if people on the Palestinian side come out with the information that we can retrieve our hostages, that's what's going to happen. So I think that each time we found either dead bodies or live people and got them out, it was because there was cooperation with Palestinians who cut a deal with the Israeli government, got out of there, probably with Israeli temporary passports, and were accepted by friendly countries. And I mean, we did liberate 7 of our people. 3 were killed tragically by mistake. And we've gotten out quite a few dead bodies also, which we have to get out because people have to be buried properly in Judaism. So all I can say is I know in general now, because they say it in the news, we have more information on more hostages, and of course we cannot say who they are or where they are, and we're waiting for the right moments to go in and liberate them. So just to tell you, Lori, as long as Yahya Sinwar continues playing games with the United States and playing games with Israel, there will be military operations where we find our hostages and get them out. But getting those 6 dead people out today it made my day, because the families, are seeking closure to bury their people.
When they have intelligence that certain hostages have been killed, do they let the families know?
Immediately.
I mean, before they rescue their bodies or anything, they just let them know, hey, we've got intelligence that your family member has died.
Listen. These Palestinian terrorists all get thoroughly interviewed, but that's not the word. Interrogated. They get thoroughly interrogated, and then Israel cross-references all these details until really sure that the information is correct. And I don't know exactly how they get to the exact places. I wouldn't be surprised if the terrorists lead the Israeli troops to the places where the bodies are. And like I said, after they get the bodies out of there, or liberate the hostages who are alive, those who cooperate with Israel get rewarded and are hopefully allowed to leave. We had a problem in liberating Noah Argamani and the 3 other guys who were there, 4 guys. And the Palestinians reported that we killed 200 Palestinians to get our 4 people out. Could be. They have guards protecting the people that are alive. Good question, Laurie, as always.
Are the soldiers who were accused of abusing a prisoner still in jail?
They've been released. They're under house arrest. The Attorney General of the military cannot admit that she made a mistake. So they're going through the process of, as if they're going to, I think they're going to close the files against them. I'll tell you something else that I think none of you guys heard about, but yesterday or the day before, we have a very popular singer in Israel. His name is Eyal Golan. And like a few days after the Gaza attack on October the 7th, he was saying these Gaza terrorists, they should all be wiped out. Gaza should be wiped out. And can I tell you something? Every Israeli said that. So the Attorney General arrested him for inciting against Gaza. That's how stupid the Attorney General is. So finally, what happened was there was such an uproar that 9 million Israelis came out publicly all saying Gaza should be erased. Let the Attorney General arrest everyone. I'm telling you, the whole justice system is communist. It's socialist. It's very sick. I don't know. You know what? I don't know how Benjamin Netanyahu goes to bed at night. He must have his stomach turning all the time, thinking about the evil behavior of the justice system in Israel. And we're still facing a coup d'etat against Netanyahu. He's being very wise in how he deals with the left-wing opposition. Good questions. You're right. You're right. We're living in a very strange country. At least the Supreme Court in America is 50-50. Sometimes it veers off slightly in one direction or another direction. But here in Israel, the Supreme Court in Israel does not tolerate having any judges who are right-wing or religious. It's a good old boys club. You all know what an old boys club is. You have to be a socialist or a communist, part of the old boys club to be admitted into the Supreme Court. You know, when the Muslims say, kill all the Jews, Supreme Court doesn't do anything about it. But when a Jew gets up and makes a casual comment that Gaza has to be erased, so they call it selective justice. We have selective justice in Israel.
Hi, Avi, it's Angela.
Yes, dear. New Jersey.
Hello. I'm just down the shore. Avi, I mean, you know what you're saying? I mean, it's like that. That's like the UK. You could be describing the UK. It's bizarre. And it's very interesting what you were saying about the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, democratically elected. Because in the UK, we have millions of Bangladeshis living in our country. And if they thought for 1 second that this had happened to their democratically elected prime minister, I don't know what they would do. It's quite concerning. There's very little about it on our news anymore. Only when it initially happened, they reported, but there's nothing since. And concerning, you know, the upside down politics, the wrong is right, right is wrong. I mean, I was at an MDA event the other weekend, and that was organized by the Jewish community, and they invited the Christian community, and we had Daniel Berger over, and also to speak was the mother and father of British Jews whose son was killed by Hamas.
at the Nova Festival. The boy was engaged in security at the event, and Hamas murdered him. And he described the most appalling treatment he received from the British ambassador to Israel, who he met face to face with a couple of times. And the UK Foreign Office, along with this ambassador, refused to repatriate the body of their son to Britain. And the whole room, the jaws were on the floor, listening to his experience of our government, our Foreign Office. We just couldn't believe this could happen. He's a British citizen. By law, they should be repatriating his body. They weren't. They were very cold, very callous. And it was the Israeli government actually who paid for his body and brought his body back. And they received a lot of kindness from representatives of the Israeli government. Not so much the UK government. So when we hear these things, it's really concerning where we are. Listening. Obviously, we've been watching the American debacle for a number of years, and to think that Kamala Harris could be in any way perceived as sane and competent is beyond belief. But we seem to have these types of people all through many governments, even in Europe too. Writing is really on the wall, and it's sad and worrying to note where this all potentially is going. Very, very, very concerning. So yeah, it's like we're all sitting in a tinderbox. It's
I
like
think
they want.
I think there's a tremendous downturn
Yeah.
in the US, Canada, and Britain, and France, where the governments are very anti-Jewish, anti-Israel, anti-Christian. And I'm a Jew who comes out very openly and says I'm praying for a Christian revival, because the Jews don't have the numbers. It's the Christians Christian revival for Israel's survival. That's the name of my second book. And that's why I wrote it, because this is 25 years ago. I was saying the Jewish population is actually decreasing everywhere, and the Muslim population is growing. And in the democratic system, politicians look for the votes. So they're going to not look for the Jewish vote, they're going to look for the Muslim vote.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that appears to have happened in our country anyway.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
By the way, I don't feel safe traveling to Britain anymore, because the British police are now investigating the emails of everybody. And if you said anything bad about Islam, you get arrested. Same in Canada. I'm wondering when the day will come that I cannot go back to the States anymore.
Yeah, there's been a number of arrests.
Depends who wins in November.
Listen, I'm praying you guys are praying for Israel. Let me tell you, I'm praying for the elections that Trump should be given the victory by God.
Amen to that.
Amen, amen. Listen, guys, I love you all. I'd like to continue for another few hours with you, but I do have my God's Learning channel from Odessa, Texas, and I'm going to be with them in 15 minutes. So that's taped, and you can find it on GLC, God's Learning channel. And of course, look for Brant Fricker, Avi Lipkin. As goes Israel, so goes the world. So I recommend that to all of you.
Thank you.
And hopefully tonight, Aaron will be posting last week's YouTube and this week's YouTube. So I look forward to speaking to all of you. I'm a little more optimistic about having electricity and internet next week. So I'm very excited every time I see you all.
Same here, Avi. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Avi. Shalom, shalom.
Thank
Until
you,
we
Avi.
meet
Bye-bye,
again.
everyone.
God
Have a
bless
Thank you,
great
you.
week.
Avi.
Love y'all.
Shalom.
Bye.